Middle schoolers in math have a really hard time distinguishing between these two equations and understanding exactly how they behave and why. And that's a real problem because it only gets more complicated once they get out of 7th grade. Am I right? Here we have 2 times x minus 4 equals 20. Here we have 2x minus 4 equals 20. Up here, this is all one term, and we don't use that word enough in math class. But this is one term. These are two separate terms. Terms are only separated by adding and subtracting. I have camps this summer on outschool.com. If you have a rising middle schooler, it will be a great place for them to learn from me in a way that can help them make sense of all the math coming in middle school. Now, back to the equations. So 2 terms and 1 term. See, these are 2 factors, but they multiply together to give you one number in theory, but we can't do that. Why? Because there's a missing part. Here, there's also a missing part. This is 2 terms, so something minus 4 is 20. Well, this has to be 24 over here, obviously, because 24 minus 4 is 20. So how do I get 2 times something to be 24? This x has to be 12. We could do all the steps, and that would make sense. But that's not the point of this video. The point in this video is to illustrate A, the fact that we don't use the word term enough in math class, and B, we also don't recognize how to think about factors going back to basic multiplication. If this said 2 times 10 equals 20, this is true. This is also true. I know that because of the equal sign. So if 2 times 10 is 20, this has to equal 10 because we're multiplying this term by this term. So what does x have to be? X would have to be 14 in here because 14 minus 4 is 10 and 2 times 10 is 20. Okay, back to the original question. How do we get struggling middle schoolers to really see this deeply so they're not reliant on steps? And what do I do first? To remedy the struggle, it's really important to spend a ton of time on one problem like this and compare all different forms of this equation with and without the variable. So 2 times 10 is 20. 2 times x minus 4 is 20. We also should be able to recognize that 2 times x minus 2 times 4 equals 20. Well, 2x minus 8 equals 20. 2 times something minus 8 has to be 20. This has to be 28. So x still has to be 14. So all this is related. If I wrote this as 2 times 4 plus 6, we have students do this in grade school, but they don't connect it when it gets to middle school unless you do it with them repetitively. This is the same thing as 2 times 4 plus 2 times 6. We need to be discussing why. Why is this expression and this expression the exact same thing? We call this the distributive property, but so many kids don't see it as a form of multiplication, and that's a big problem. They should be learning at an early age. You can show multiplication just with parentheses. This says 2 times 10. That way, when they see this, they already can understand there's a hidden multiplication sign in here. And when we say distributive property, all we really mean is you're multiplying 2 by everything inside the parentheses because ultimately this is just one factor with an unknown part. When we get to here, we've distributed the 2 because we've multiplied it by x and by 4. And we're subtracting the 2 parts. We're subtracting in here as well. If your students need help with this kind of thinking, please join me, watch me here, check it out on Facebook. I also have YouTube videos where I'm trying to build out my library of help for students. I'm especially working right now on algebraic concepts, including visual patterns, so kids can understand 2 variables and graphing in a way that will make sense for them as they progress through high school.